like to read you a little bedtime story. I know it's kind of early for that, but we'll have to make do. Growing Up White. When I was 12, and my parents would go away and leave me the house, I'd play Tchaikovsky, tear off my clothes, and try to interest the dog in sex. Usually, we'd play the Fourth Symphony. I'd eat hot dogs and beans, kennel ration and gravy train for the dog. She was a 2-year-old neutered German Shepherd. The weenies and beans I heated up on the electric stove, dumped a few cups of dry gravy train into the dog's plastic bowl, added water, whacked out half a can of kennel ration, T-bone steak flavor, fresh water in the dog's other plastic bowl, can of pop for myself. Mom and Pop were off to the Shenandoah for this particular weekend. Turned up chai a few notches beyond distortion, deigned to slip out of my underpants, pranced nude back into the kitchen to see how the dog was doing. Doing nice. Wolfing down the greasy brown with gulping liquid sounds, making her whole back bloat as though she were vomiting in reverse. Moved a hand to my crotch. The blood down there heavy. French horns echoed in the house like Germans conquering the world, and nobody awake enough to care. Deciding to let the dog finish, I drifted back out into the living room, smiled out the bay window, felt golden and free. The sun was setting on the hill, twilight coming in like an extremely distant toothache. Vaguely pleasant, pastel, suggestive, mildly interesting. Out in the kitchen, no longer heard sloppy noises. The dog belched. Ambling nude and cock of the walk back into the kitchen, confronted the dog. She looked up at me with a neutral grin, her snout caked with processed horse meat. I liked the dog because she really knew how to get down and eat. The cellos tripped into pizzicato, flutes and piccolos flurried around them. It was only September, but I wished hard for snow. Then, after dark, the dog and I could run out naked in the backyard, engage in a snowball fight. The dog made a perfect target. Big, mobile, stupid, no hands. But it was clear and not nearly cold enough. War was out of the question. So we'd have to orchestrate a little sex. I didn't know what I was doing, although the dog seemed to have some idea. Tchaikovsky boomed. I grabbed her by the violin, began applying the rosin of my palm to her string. She rolled over, showed me her nippled kettle drum. French horns, after a dramatic pause, restated the theme everybody is solemn to remember. Even the dog grunted approval. Or was it suppressed lust? Then chai got dreamy. Woodwinds tapered off. A solo oboe took the stage. The dog and I became a mythical animal with 6 legs, 2 arms, and a shotgun for a tail. We went off in search of damsels, and not to save them. We galloped over rolling hills carpeted with daisies. The sun beat down on us like a waterfall of chicken feathers. The animal grew hungry, starved, and still it galloped. At last, under a live oak tree, we found a woman with large bosom, a pretty face, and the promise of nice legs under the satin gown she wore. She screamed. We fell to gulping her in a hurry. I started with the nose. The dog ripped off her gown, went straight for the crotch. The snot in her nose tasted delightfully familiar. I couldn't see what the dog was doing, but sounded like she was enjoying herself because it sounded like she was throwing up backwards again. I was licking out the inner recesses of her sinuses when the dog's tail went off. Dead pigeons dropped out of the sky like volcano ash. Chai was booming the kettles, not to mention the bit of Dresden in the cupboard. It was an all-out nuclear attack on our souls. The dog and me were split apart. The girl vanished like cigarette ash at the touch of a thumb. I was back in the kitchen. The dog was panting. The stereo blowing the dust out of its lungs. The entire orchestra gone insane with authority. Then came steps up the porch to the door. Key slotted in lock, turned. My parents were coming home early. I covered the dog up best I could, then locked myself naked inside the refrigerator. It was dark in there, but I managed to find a pop, also to scrape off most of the dog hair. Pop found me while he was rooting around for a beer. He thought it a joke in poor taste. Made me go to bed early. He had killed Tchaikovsky the moment he walked in, of course. We buried the dog the next morning. To this day, Mom and Pop still think somebody drove a truck up her ass. The truth is more boring.